The Apollo 11 moon landing mystery, conspiracy, or reality? Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. But did he really set his foot on the moon? Or was it just a blockbuster Hollywood set? Is the Apollo 11 moon landing just a conspiracy or a reality? Let's find out today. Welcome, space enthusiasts, to a thrilling ride of one of the biggest mysteries that still hangs over our heads. Literally, the Apollo 11 moon landing. Conspiracies, friends. We've all heard them. Some say it was a Hollywood production. Others claim it was a giant leap for Photoshop. We decided to take a closer look. Grab your spacesuits to fly with us to the moon. We're about to uncover some out-of-this-world secrets. But before we jump on the conspiracy theories, let's tackle the facts. What was the reason behind the Apollo 11 mission? And how did it all start? Well, folks, you might be surprised to know that the reason behind this mission was merely a war. Specifically, a Cold War between America and the Soviet Union. Let's just say they were both eager to go to space. The story started in 1957 when the Soviet Union became the first country to launch the world's first artificial satellite. This beauty was called Sputnik and was the first little guy to be placed in the Earth's orbit. And then guess what happened? Well, America was not the one to stay behind. In 1958, a few months later, America launched its own satellite. But boy, just when you thought they had won the race, they met another shocking event. 3 years later, in 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin ended up being the first man to go to space. Well, now what? This is where the story of the Apollo 11 mission starts. The President of America, John F. Kennedy, wrote a letter to his Vice President on the 20th of April 1961 asking how to beat the Soviets. The answer was simple: send a man to the moon. So now the mission begins. Just for once, imagine the year 1961, a time with no cell phones, no internet, no GPS, and old worn-out computers. But hey, they say if you will it, anything is possible, even landing on the moon. Literally. Now, from 1963 to 1967, the unmanned testing begins. They then planned the first manned test called Apollo 1 to be executed in February 1967. Unfortunately, on the 27th of January, their 3 astronauts preparing to go to space died due to a cabin fire. Mind you, a fire can't break the courage of NASA, so they continued with the mission and held Apollo 4, Apollo 5, and Apollo 6, all unmanned. Then finally in 1968, the Apollo 7 mission sent 3 astronauts successfully into space. NASA then continues Apollo 8, Apollo 9, and Apollo 10 missions, all testing different parts of the process, including rockets, spacecraft, orbiting the moon, and more. This is where the dream finally comes true. On the 16th of July 1969, finally the Apollo 11 mission was launched. And Neil Armstrong, the man, the myth, the legend, becomes the first man to step on the moon. He wasn't just an astronaut, he was the one giant leap for mankind. His first words on the moon were, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." You can barely pull off a moonwalk at weddings, and Neil did it in a spacesuit. Impressive, right? But of course, there's always that one person at the party who says, "Oh, they faked the moon landing." Even 50 years later, people find it hard to believe the landing of Neil Armstrong on our beloved moon. There has been theory after theory claiming that the whole landing was staged. Well, let's debunk that, shall we? Before we explore that, what are your views about the Apollo 11 moon landing mystery? Share it with us in the comments below. But here is how science helps in debunking the moon landing theory. Conspiracy theory number 1. Shadows in the moon landing photos are claimed to be fake. Whoa, sorry we didn't have HD cameras back on the moon then. Look at this moon landing picture. Closely observe the shadows cast by Neil Armstrong and another object just out of the shot. Well, what do you think is wrong with them? Simple, they are not parallel. Usually the shadows are parallel to the source of light. Now, many conspiracy theorists take this picture as proof of a fake moon landing. According to them, if the sun were the only source of light, then shouldn't the shadows be parallel? Doesn't this prove that the whole scene was mocked up in a studio with multiple light sources creating different shadow patterns? Interesting point for sure, but no. there are more mysteries than you know of. This phenomenon occurs on the lunar surface, yet we have the ability to replicate this effect whenever desired here on Earth. Sometimes, because of perspectives, parallel lines appear to be non-parallel. Similarly, if you're trying to reduce onto a two-dimensional plane a three-dimensional situation, you can make lines do all sorts of weird things. Many artists have been using this for centuries. Okay, not sure yet? How about you test it yourself? Go out when the sun is low in light and see for yourself. Similar to the Apollo 11 image, your shadows will not be parallel. Hence, the theory was debunked. Come on, people, do better. Conspiracy theory number 2. The moon rocks. NASA brought back 382 kilograms of lunar rocks. Now, I don't know about you, but I can barely bring back a souvenir from a beach vacation. Plus, these rocks have properties that are unique to the moon. They're like space fingerprints telling us, hey, we've been to the moon, and here's the proof. I mean, these are definitely not from some neighbor's garden. Conspiracy theory number 3. Astronauts couldn't have survived the Earth's radiation field. So, our dear Mother Earth has a zone of charged particles called the Van Allen radiation belt all around her. These are the regions in the magnetic field around our Earth where the high-energy trapped particles from the Sun confide. Simply, it means going into this radiation isn't a very smart choice, especially if you want to avoid extremely high radiation concerns. Now, what does this mean for the Apollo 11 moon landing? How did the astronauts move past that? Surely the amount of radiation would have killed them. Doesn't this prove that the moon landing was fake? Here's the scoop on why the moon missions weren't roasted like marshmallows in the Van Allen radiation belt. Think firewalking. Imagine strolling over hot coals. You don't dilly-dally, right? Same deal with the astronauts zipping through the radiation belt. Speedy transits means less time for trouble. It's like a cosmic pit stop. In and out. No time for a cosmic barbecue. The transit time through this radiation belt at the beginning of the Apollo 11 was incredibly short. And if you're going fast enough, which you need to be if you're going to the moon, it's no problem whatsoever. So, as long as you're on the fast track, radiation belts are just cosmic speed bumps, not a hot mess for your feet. Conspiracy theory number 4. The US flag is waving in the wind, but there is no wind on the moon. One of the iconic images of the Apollo 11 moon landing shows the US flag on the moon's surface, waving. But there is no atmosphere on the moon, ultimately no wind. So, how is the flag waving? Does it mean that the conspiracy theorists were right all along? Hold on, let's check it out. If you look at the image closely, especially at the top edge of the flag, you'll find the answer there. A telescopic pole has been extended along the top in order to make the flag fly proudly. Well, America wasn't going to slip by that easily now. Because it's been set up like this, it appears to be waving. And as for the wrinkles, well, I can't make my bed without creating a hurricane of bedsheet waves. The flag has literally been screwed up for 4 days en route to the moon. Conspiracy theory number 5. Neil Armstrong's footprint. If you think moonwalking is just for dance floors, Neil did it in a spacesuit. But the real deal? The famous footprint. It's not just any print, it's the mark of mankind on a celestial body. Sorry, conspiracy theorists, but that's a pretty hard one to Photoshop. So to sum it up, moon rocks, flag dynamics, and Armstrong's one small step all point to the same conclusion. The Apollo 11 moon landing was as real as your morning coffee addiction. Let us know in the comments below if you think it's a conspiracy or reality. As for now, let's leave the moonlit mysteries behind and shoot for the stars. See you in the next video with another mind-blowing fact.